High strategist Velker Thane stared at the holographic display hovering before him, its eerie blue glow reflecting off his angular features. 10,000 celestial bodies tracked, categorized, and monitored in real time. Order amid chaos. Predictability amid the random. Just as the Orion Empire had maintained for 10 millennia. Another thrilling day in paradise, he muttered to himself, voice tinged with the faintest hint of something that might have been sarcasm, had such a thing not been genetically discouraged 3 generations ago. The observation post on Alpha Trine's outer ring was the Empire's most advanced early warning system, a technological marvel that had helped maintain peace across 17 galactic sectors. Peace being the Empire's preferred term for absolute control. Velker rotated his wrist, cycling through the standard monitoring protocols. Around him, junior strategists worked in perfect synchronization, their minds partially linked to the station's central intelligence. Not a full neural link. That privilege was reserved for the most loyal, like himself, but enough to ensure the necessary conformity of thought. Something flickered at the edge of the display. Anomaly detected in Sector 7, Quadrant 3. Announced the smooth, feminine voice of the station's AI. Scan irregularity. Requesting verification. Velker frowned. Scan irregularities happen occasionally. Cosmic radiation, sensor malfunctions, the odd space debris behaving unpredictably. But what caught his attention was the AI's tone. Was that uncertainty? Show me, he commanded, straightening his posture. The hologram zoomed into the sector, revealing a small object moving at precisely the speed that should be impossible according to the Empire's understanding of physics. That's unusual, said Velker, understating the situation with characteristic imperial restraint. Run complete diagnostics. The junior strategist's fingers danced across their interfaces, their expressions transitioning from focused concentration to puzzled concern. Sir, one of them finally spoke. Diagnostics report all systems functioning at optimal capacity. Then explain what I'm seeing, Velker demanded, pointing at the anomaly that was now demonstrably accelerating. We can't, sir, admitted another analyst. The object appears to be moving at 1.7 times light speed without creating a hyperspace bubble or quantum tunneling signature. That's theoretically impossible. Velker's eyes narrowed. The Empire had prohibited words like impossible a century ago. Their use implied limits to imperial knowledge, and limits were inconvenient for the narrative of omnipotence. Identification protocol, he ordered sharply. That's just it, sir, the first analyst replied, her voice barely above a whisper. It's not in any records. Velker felt a cold sensation spread through his chest, an unfamiliar feeling he distantly recognized as genuine alarm. In an empire that cataloged and tracked every asteroid, comet, and dust particle across controlled space, not in any records was more than an anomaly. It was an existential threat. Contact Imperial Central Command, he said, keeping his voice level despite the growing unease. Priority Alpha. Tell them we have an unidentified vessel approaching at impossible speed with no quantum signature. As the communications officer rushed to comply, Velker added almost as an afterthought, and it's moving fast. The Emperor's response was immediate and predictable. Full military alert across 7 sectors, and an emergency council summoned to the Imperial Citadel on Orion Prime. What was less predictable was the personal summons Velker received, ordering him to attend in person. During the quantum jump to the capital, Velker reviewed everything they knew about the anomaly, which wasn't much. The vessel, if indeed it was a vessel, had slowed down upon detecting the Empire's observation post. It now maintained a position just outside the defensive perimeter of Alpha Trine, making no aggressive moves but responding to no communications either. Its design was peculiar. Smooth, featureless surfaces with occasional geometric protrusions that seemed to serve no practical purpose. No visible propulsion system. No weapon ports. No recognizable communication arrays. It was as if someone had built a ship by describing the concept of ship to an intelligence that had never seen one. The Imperial Citadel loomed large as Velker's shuttle made its final approach. A monument to power, its crystalline spires reached into the atmosphere, deliberately designed to inspire awe and intimidation in equal measure. Emperor Selther IX was waiting in the strategy chamber when Velker arrived, surrounded by his council of advisors and several units of the Mind Guard. Elite soldiers with enhanced psionic abilities, capable of detecting thought treachery before it could form into action. High strategist, the Emperor, acknowledged with a slight nod, his voice carrying the artificial resonance imparted by the Throne of Minds, a technological marvel that connected him to the thoughts of billions of citizens across the Empire. You have disturbing news. It wasn't a question. Velker bowed deeply. Indeed, Your Radiance. An unknown vessel has appeared at the edge of Alpha Trine's defensive perimeter. It demonstrates technology beyond our current understanding and responds to no Imperial protocols. Show me, commanded the Emperor, exactly as Velker had done hours earlier. The holographic display activated, showing real-time footage transmitted from Alpha Trine. The vessel remained stationary, its unusual design now clearly visible to the assembled advisors. What manner of beings would create such a ship? Mused AI Overseer Kale, the artificial intelligence responsible for monitoring the emotional health of Imperial citizens. The design appears inefficient or operating on principles we don't yet comprehend, Velker suggested, immediately regretting his words as the Mind Guards shifted their attention toward him. The Emperor's eyes narrowed fractionally. Your assessment, strategist? Velker chose his next words carefully. The vessel represents unknown technology, but has made no aggressive moves. Its capabilities suggest a civilization of significant advancement. I recommend cautious engagement rather than immediate military response. A murmur ran through the council. Some in agreement, others clearly opposed to any action that didn't involve immediate destruction of the potential threat. And if this is merely the scout for an invasion force, asked Grand Marshal Thorian, his cybernetically enhanced hand tightening around the hilt of his ceremonial sword, then we would be wise to learn what we can before they arrive. Velker countered smoothly. Knowledge is power, Grand Marshal, a principle upon which the Empire was founded. The Emperor raised a hand, silencing the debate. Overseer Kale, probability assessment. The AI's holographic form shimmered as it processed countless variables. Based on historical precedent and behavioral analysis, this represents a 78.3% probability of first contact with a previously unknown species, 12.7% probability of an interdimensional incursion, and 9% probability of a rogue faction utilizing stolen or independently developed technology. And the threat assessment? Prompted the Emperor. Insufficient data, admitted the AI. The vessel's capabilities exceed our technological understanding, making traditional threat matrices unreliable. The Emperor was silent for a long moment, his fingers drumming against the armrest of his throne. Finally, he spoke. High Strategist Thane, you will lead the initial contact team. Take whatever resources you require. Your mission is to ascertain the nature and intent of this anomaly. Velker bowed again. As you command, Your Radiance. And strategist, the Emperor added, his voice dropping to a more intimate tone. Remember that you represent not just yourself, but the eternal might of the Orion Empire. 10,000 years of unbroken rule demands nothing less than absolute loyalty of thought and deed. Always, Your Radiance, Velker replied automatically, ignoring the slight pressure at the back of his mind. The Emperor's a subtle psionic probe, testing his conviction. As Velker assembled his team and prepared for the mission, he couldn't shake a strange feeling of anticipation. The unknown was rare in an empire that prided itself on complete knowledge. And despite decades of loyal service, a small, carefully hidden part of him had always wondered if there was something more beyond the Empire's reach. Now, it seemed he might find out. The Imperial diplomatic vessel, Unyielding Truth, dropped out of hyperspace near Alpha Trine 3 standard days later. Velker had selected his team with careful precision. Xenolinguists with neural enhancements, military strategists with combat experience, and scientific specialists across multiple disciplines. All were loyal citizens with spotless records, though Velker had deliberately chosen those with a hint of intellectual curiosity in their psychological profiles. The mysterious vessel remained where it had stopped, maintaining its position with preternatural precision. "Hail them on all frequencies," Velker ordered as the unyielding truth approached at a respectful distance. The communications officer complied, sending the Empire's standard greeting message, a carefully crafted combination of mathematical sequences and basic linguistic patterns designed to establish initial contact with new species. Silence was the only response. "Perhaps they communicate through different means," suggested Dr. Alara Vin, the chief xenobiologist. "Not all species rely on electromagnetic radiation for communication." Velker was about to respond when the communications array suddenly activated of its own. "Echo. Incoming transmission," the officer announced, surprise evident in his voice despite his training. It appears to be in perfect Imperial standard." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a humanoid figure. Female, apparently, with dark skin and eyes that seemed too knowing, too amused for a species encountering the mighty Orion Empire for the first time. "Greetings, representatives of the Orion Empire," the figure said, her Imperial standard flawless but accented in a way Velker had never heard before. "I am Ambassador Kira Nolan of Earth. Thank you for accepting our invitation to talk." Velker's diplomatic training kicked in automatically, allowing him to respond without betraying his surprise. "On behalf of His Radiance Emperor Selther IX, eternal ruler of the 17 sectors, I welcome you. I am High Strategist Velker Thane." He paused briefly. "If I may ask, Ambassador Nolan, how do you come to speak our language so fluently?" The ambassador smiled, a small, knowing expression that seemed to hold layers of meaning. "We've been observing for some time. Your language was not difficult to learn." Velker felt a chill at this casual admission of prolonged surveillance. How had they remained undetected by the Empire's vast intelligence network? "Your vessel possesses remarkable technology," he said, deciding on directness. "Our sensors indicate capabilities beyond our current understanding." "Yes," Kira agreed simply, offering no elaboration. An uncomfortable silence stretched between them. "May I ask the purpose of your visit to Imperial space?" Velker finally inquired. "Observation," she replied. "We don't intend to join your empire or establish formal diplomatic ties. We are merely watching." The sheer audacity of this statement, this implicit rejection of imperial authority, left Velker momentarily speechless. In 10 millennia, no species had ever approached the Empire with such casual dismissal of its power. "Perhaps," he suggested carefully, "a face-to-face meeting would be more productive for both our peoples." The ambassador considered this for a moment. "Agreed. We will come aboard your vessel in 1 standard hour. We bring a small delegation and a token gift, as is our custom when meeting new civilizations." The transmission ended before Velker could respond. "Sir," the security chief whispered urgently, "we cannot allow unknown entities aboard without proper scanning and quarantine procedures." Velker nodded. "Standard protocols will be observed, Commander, but we will be courteous. Whatever these humans are, they clearly possess technology that warrants respect." The hour passed swiftly as the ship prepared for the unprecedented meeting. Despite his outward calm, Velker's mind raced with possibilities. Who were these humans? How had they developed technology that defied the Empire's understanding of physics? And what do they truly want? At the appointed time, a small shuttle emerged from the human vessel. Unlike its parent ship, this craft was clearly designed for atmospheric entry, with sleek lines and recognizable propulsion systems. "Their shuttle is approaching Docking Bay 3, reported the tactical officer. "Scans detect 4 life forms aboard. No weapon signatures, but, sir, our deeper scans cannot penetrate their hull material." Another anomaly to add to the growing list. Velker and a small reception committee made their way to the docking bay. As the airlock cycled open, He found himself holding his breath. The humans who emerged were anticlimactic in their appearance. Bipedal, symmetrical, varying in skin tone, but all within parameters common to several species within the Empire. They wore simple, elegantly cut clothing without insignia or apparent rank markers. Ambassador Kira Nolan led the group. In person, she was of average height, with close-cropped dark hair and eyes that seemed to evaluate everything they saw with quiet amusement. She carried a small, ornate box, crafted from what appeared to be actual wood, a rare commodity in the age of synthetic materials. High Strategist Thane, she greeted him with a slight inclination of her head. "Thank you for your hospitality." Velker performed the formal greeting gesture of the Imperial Court. "Ambassador Nolan, welcome aboard the Unyielding Truth. May I introduce my colleagues?" The introductions proceeded smoothly, each human greeting the Imperial representatives with perfect politeness and zero deference. It was subtle but unmistakable. These humans did not consider themselves inferior to the Empire in any way. "We've prepared accommodation for your delegation," Velker informed them, "and His Radiance Emperor Selther IX has expressed interest in meeting you personally on Orion Prime." "We would be honored," Kira replied, though her tone suggested that honor was not quite the emotion she felt. "But first, our gift." She extended the wooden box toward Velker. Protocol dictated that gifts from unknown species should be thoroughly scanned before acceptance. But something in the ambassador's steady gaze made Velker hesitate. There was a challenge there, and perhaps a test. "Our custom," Kira explained, "is to offer something unique from our culture when meeting new friends." Velker signaled to his security team to stand down, then accepted the box personally. "The Empire appreciates your gesture of goodwill." He opened the box carefully. Inside lay what appeared to be a small seed or pod, glowing with a soft, pulsating blue light. "It's beautiful," he said truthfully. "May I ask what it is?" "We call it a peace blossom," Kira explained. "It's a biological construct that emits specific neural frequencies. Those in its presence find their aggressive impulses temporarily dampened and their empathic responses heightened. A simple reminder that understanding often requires a shift in perspective." Velker nearly dropped the box. The implications were staggering. A biological organism that could influence neural patterns? The Empire's own thought control technology required massive machinery and AI oversight. If the humans could achieve similar results with something so small, "A remarkable gift," he managed to say, "though I must inform you that any technology affecting Imperial citizens must be registered and regulated according to Imperial law." Kira smiled that small, knowing smile again. "Of course. Though strictly speaking, it's not technology. It's life." The distinction felt important somehow, though Velker couldn't immediately articulate why. "You'll find it has limited range and temporary effect," one of the other humans added. A tall, lean man introduced as Chief Scientist Elijah Becky. "It's merely a demonstration of goodwill, not a tool of influence." "The Emperor will be fascinated," Velker said diplomatically, closing the box. "Shall we proceed to your quarters? I'm sure you'd like to rest before the journey to Orion Prime." As they walked through the corridors of the Unyielding Truth, Velker noticed the humans observing everything with quiet attention. They asked casual questions about Imperial history, technology, and social structures. The kind of questions expected from diplomatic visitors, yet somehow their interest seemed more evaluative than impressed. Later, alone in his quarters, Velker drafted his preliminary report to the Emperor. The humans appeared peaceful, technologically advanced, and culturally sophisticated. Yet something about them left him profoundly unsettled. They should have been afraid, or at least awed. The Orion Empire had crushed civilizations for lesser offenses than unauthorized entry into Imperial space. Yet these humans behaved as if they were perfectly safe, as if the Empire's vast military might pose no threat to them whatsoever. Either they were foolishly overconfident, or they knew something the Empire didn't. Velker wasn't sure which possibility troubled him more. The journey to Orion Prime took 3 days at maximum hyperspace velocity. During this time, Velker observed the humans with growing fascination. They participated in the customary diplomatic exchanges, shared carefully selected information about their home world, a seemingly unremarkable planet in an unremarkable solar system, and expressed polite interest in imperial culture. Yet they revealed almost nothing of substance about their technological capabilities, political structures, or true intentions. Equally disturbing was the effect of their peace blossom. Though kept secured in Velker's quarters, the ship's medical officer reported a measurable decrease in stress hormones and aggressive impulses among crew members in proximity to the storage area. Some even reported improved sleep and increased feelings of well-being, a biological organism affecting consciousness itself. The implications were unsettling. Orion Prime's orbital defenses parted before the unyielding truth like ceremonial guards before a royal procession. The humans observed the massive weapon platforms, automated defense systems, and swarms of military vessels with polite interest but no trace of intimidation. Impressive defenses, Ambassador Nolan commented as they descended toward the capital. Though somewhat redundant, perhaps. The Empire values security, Velker replied neutrally. 10,000 years of peace didn't happen by accident. Peace, echoed Kira, glancing at him with those two knowing eyes. An interesting definition of the word. Velker chose not to pursue that particular conversational thread. The Imperial Citadel welcomed them with full ceremonial honors, an unusual gesture for a previously unknown species. Clearly, the Emperor was taking this first contact seriously. The throne room was designed to overwhelm visitors with its scale and grandeur. Ceilings that soared hundreds of meters overhead. Columns of rare crystal that captured and amplified light. Technological. Marvels seamlessly integrated with artistic masterpieces from across the Empire. Mind guards positioned strategically throughout, their neural amplifiers glowing faintly beneath their ornate helmets. Emperor Selther IX sat upon the throne of minds, his physical form enhanced by subtle biotechnology that gave him the appearance of ageless perfection. AI Overseer Kale floated beside him, its holographic form shifting between various artistic representations of wisdom and power. The human delegation entered the vast space with appropriate decorum, but, once again, without the awe or intimidation such surroundings were designed to evoke. Velker performed the formal introductions according to Imperial protocol, culminating with a deep bow toward the throne. Your Radiance, may I present Ambassador Kira Nolan of Earth and her delegation. The Emperor studied the humans with undisguised curiosity. Welcome to Orion Prime, Ambassador. Your arrival has caused quite a stir in our orderly corner of the universe. Kira bowed, respectfully, but not deeply enough to suggest subservience. Emperor Selther, thank you for your generous welcome. Earth is honored by this audience. Tell me, Ambassador, the Emperor continued, leaning forward slightly, how is it that a species unknown to us has developed technology that surpasses our own? The Empire has cataloged all civilizations within 50,000 light years. Not all, apparently, Kira replied with a small smile. As for our technology, we've simply followed different developmental paths. Necessity has always been our greatest teacher. The Emperor's expression remained pleasant, but Velker noticed a slight tightening around his eyes. The human's lack of proper deference was beginning to irritate him. And what necessity drove you to enter Imperial space unannounced? He asked pointedly. Curiosity, Kira answered simply. Exploration is fundamental to human nature. The Emperor exchanged a glance with AI Overseer Kale, whose holographic form shimmered slightly in what Velker recognized as its equivalent of concern. Your vessel's capabilities are remarkable, the Emperor observed. Our scientists are particularly interested in your propulsion technology. Perhaps a mutual exchange of knowledge would benefit both our peoples. It was diplomatically phrased, but Velker recognized the implicit demand. The Empire wanted the humans' technology and was offering a veneer of cooperation to obtain it. Perhaps, Kira agreed, non-committally. Though I should clarify that we haven't come seeking alliance or integration into your empire. Our mission is purely observational. The Emperor's smile became fixed. Few who encounter the Empire choose to remain outside its protective embrace. We've noticed, Kira replied, her tone neutral, but her meaning unmistakable. A tense silence fell over the throne room. I understand you've brought a gift, the Emperor said finally, changing tack. High Strategist Thane speaks highly of it. Yes, Kira confirmed, nodding to one of her companions who stepped forward with a wooden box. A small token from Earth. We call it a peace blossom. The box was presented to the Emperor with appropriate ceremony. As he opened it, the subtle blue glow of the seed-like organism illuminated his features. Fascinating, he murmured, studying it with genuine interest. Overseer Kale, your analysis? The AI's sensors extended toward the blossom, scanning it thoroughly. It appears to be a biological organism engineered to emit specific neural frequencies. Most unusual, it affects brain chemistry in a manner similar to our own thought harmonization technology, but through entirely different mechanisms. A remarkable achievement, the Emperor acknowledged, looking at Kira with new respect. Your biotechnology must be highly advanced. We found that working with nature rather than attempting to control it often yields superior results, Kira replied. Another loaded statement that didn't go unnoticed by anyone in the room. The Emperor closed the box carefully. You must join us for the Imperial Banquet tonight. We've arranged a celebration in honor of this historic first contact. We will be delighted, Kira accepted with a gracious nod. As the formal audience concluded and the humans were escorted to their guest quarters, Velker remained behind at the Emperor's request. Your impression, High Strategist? The Emperor asked once they were alone save for the AI Overseer and the Mind Guards. Velker chose his words carefully. They are not what I expected, Your Radiance. Their technology clearly exceeds our current capabilities in several areas, yet they show no interest in conquest or even formal alliance. Everyone wants something, the Emperor stated flatly. Overseer, your analysis of their emotional patterns? The AI's form shimmered thoughtfully. Anomalous, Your Radiance. Ambassador, Nolan exhibits none of the stress markers, typically associated with high-stakes diplomatic encounters. No fear, no anxiety, minimal elevation in autonomic responses even when directly challenged. Either their species has remarkably different physiological responses to stress, or they have nothing to fear, the Emperor finished, his expression darkening, which is an unacceptable presumption when dealing with the Orion Empire. The peace blossom appears genuine, Velker pointed out. A sophisticated bioengineered gift is hardly the action of a hostile species. Perhaps, the Emperor conceded. Or perhaps it's precisely what we're meant to think. Have the blossom taken to the secure laboratories for complete analysis. And, Strategist Thane? Yes, Your Radiance? At tonight's banquet, I want you to stay close to Ambassador Nolan. Learn what you can about their true intentions. The Empire has not survived 10 millennia by taking alien species at their word. As you command, Velker bowed deeply. The Imperial Banquet was a spectacle designed to showcase the Empire's wealth, power, and cultural sophistication. 300 of the highest-ranking imperial officials attended, alongside cultural luminaries, scientific geniuses, and military heroes from across the 17 sectors. The human delegation entered the vast banquet hall with Ambassador Nolan at their center. They had changed in a formal attire that, while elegant, notably lacked the ostentatious ornamentation favored by imperial fashion. Their simplicity stood out amid the Baroque splendor of the imperial court like a whisper in a room full of shouts. True to his orders, Velker positioned himself near Kira during the formal dinner. As course after course of exotic delicacies were served, he engaged her in seemingly casual conversation. Your ship's design is unlike anything in our records, he observed, sipping from a crystal goblet of rare Centaurian wine. It appears almost organic in its functionality. Kira smiled slightly. We found that the distinction between technology and biology is largely artificial. The most elegant solutions often exist at the intersection of both. Yet your technological advancement seems to have occurred in isolation, Velker pressed gently. Most species benefit from cultural exchange. Were you deliberately avoiding contact with other civilizations? Not avoiding, Kira corrected. Waiting, observing, learning. For what purpose? Velker asked, keeping his tone light despite his growing frustration with her evasiveness. Kira set down her utensils and looked at him directly. Tell me, High Strategist, in your 10,000 years of Imperial history, how many species has the Empire encountered? The question seemed innocent enough. 417 cataloged sentient species within Imperial space. And how many remain fully autonomous, outside Imperial control? Velker hesitated. The true answer was none. All species within Imperial reach have been either integrated or subjugated, but admitting this so bluntly seemed diplomatically unwise. The Empire offers protection and stability to all who accept its guidance, he replied carefully. That wasn't my question, Kira noted, her voice gentle but persistent. Before Velker could formulate a suitable response, the Emperor rose from his seat at the head of the banquet table, commanding the room's attention. Honored guests, he began, his voice enhanced by subtle technology to reach every corner of the vast hall. Tonight we celebrate a historic occasion. First contact with a species known as humans, whose remarkable vessel appeared at the edge of Imperial space just days ago. Polite applause rippled through the assembly. Ambassador Nolan, the Emperor continued, gesturing toward Kira. Perhaps you would honor us with a few words about your people and your journey to our empire? It was a standard diplomatic courtesy, but also a subtle challenge. Public speaking in the imperial court was a perilous exercise, where every word was analyzed for hints of disloyalty or insult. Kira rose smoothly, apparently unfazed by the hundreds of eyes now fixed upon her. Emperor Selther, noble representatives of the Orion Empire, thank you for your generous hospitality, she began, her voice clear and confident. Earth sends its greetings and respect to your ancient civilization. She paused, surveying the assembled imperial elite with a calm gaze. You may wonder why humans, a species unknown to you until now, have suddenly appeared at your borders. The answer is simple, yet complex. The room was utterly silent, hanging on her every word. We come as observers, not conquerors or supplicants. We represent not just humanity, but a collective memory. You see, we are not alone in our observation. Earth is but one of 42 worlds who have united in common purpose. Worlds whose ancestors once encountered expanding empires not unlike your own. A murmur of surprise and concern rippled through the audience. The Emperor's expression remained neutral, but Velker noticed his hand tighten around his goblet. Throughout history, Kira continued, empires have risen and fallen, some through external conquest, others through internal decay. The wisest civilizations learn to evolve beyond imperial structures before they collapse. The stubborn ones, well, they become instructive historical examples. She smiled warmly, as if she hadn't just delivered what amounted to a veiled warning to a 10,000-year-old empire. We don't come with weapons or demands. We bring only an idea that true civilization thrives on freedom of thought and voluntary cooperation, not control and compliance. It's an idea that, once understood, tends to spread naturally. The mind guards were moving now, positioning themselves closer to the human delegation. Velker could sense the Emperor's growing anger, carefully controlled but unmistakable. I offer a toast, Kira concluded, raising her glass. To new perspectives and peaceful evolution. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, the Emperor rose, his face a mask of practiced benevolence that didn't reach his eyes. A fascinating philosophy, Ambassador, he said smoothly, though perhaps somewhat idealistic. The Empire's longevity is built on practical realities of governance, not abstract ideals. All empires believe that, Kira replied, still smiling. Until they don't. The tension in the room was palpable now. Velker found himself holding his breath, caught between diplomatic protocol and the clear provocation of the ambassador's words. "I notice," the Emperor said, his voice hardening slightly, "that you speak of 42 worlds, yet you come in a single vessel. Are we to understand that Earth speaks for this? Coalition. We were chosen as representatives because humans have a particular talent for communication," Kira explained, "and for understanding the psychology of control-based systems. Our own history is rife with them." Indeed, the Emperor's tone was dangerously pleasant now. "And what became of these control-based systems on Earth? They evolved or they fell," Kira replied simply, "often after considerable suffering that could have been avoided with greater foresight." The Emperor's smile vanished entirely. "Overseer Kale, your assessment of our guest's intentions?" The AI's holographic form materialized beside the throne, its expression grave. The ambassador's statements contained veiled threats and evidence of a coordinated effort to undermine imperial authority. Recommendation: immediate security protocols. "I agree," the Emperor said coldly. "Guards, secure the human delegation for further questioning. Their gift is to be confiscated and destroyed as a potential biological weapon." The mind guards moved swiftly, surrounding the humans. Yet remarkably, not one of the Earth delegation showed any sign of alarm or resistance. "Is this really necessary, Emperor?" Kira asked calmly. "We've made no aggressive moves against your empire. Ideas can be more dangerous than weapons. Ambassador, as you well know," the Emperor replied, "you will be treated humanely, but we must insist on a more thorough examination of your true intentions." As the guards escorted the humans from the banquet hall, Kira caught Velker's gaze one final time. There was no fear in her eyes. No anger, only a strange, almost compassionate certainty. "Remember, High Strategist," she said quietly as she passed him, "ideas are the one thing that cannot be imprisoned." The aftermath of the banquet was chaotic. Imperial intelligence officers descended on the guest quarters assigned to the humans, confiscating their few possessions and combing through them for hidden technology or weapons. The Peace Blossom was transported to the Empire's most secure biological research facility for analysis and containment. Most disturbing of all, when an Imperial battlecruiser was dispatched to secure the human vessel still orbiting near Alpha Trine, they found it. Gone. No trace remained. No hyperspace signature. No quantum displacement. It had simply vanished as if it had never existed. Velker was summoned to an emergency council meeting the following morning. The Emperor's mood was dark, his patience clearly thin. "Report, High Strategist," he commanded without preamble. "The human delegation remains in secure containment. Your Radiance," Velker began. "They have made no attempt to resist or escape, nor have they expressed any concern for their situation." And the Emperor prompted impatiently. "And that is precisely what disturbs our security analysts," Velker admitted. "Their lack of fear suggests either supreme confidence or knowledge we don't possess." "Their vessel," the Emperor demanded. "Gone, Your Radiance. Our best sensors detect no trace of it within 50 light-years of its last known position." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "This coalition," the ambassador mentioned, 42 worlds. "What do we know of them?" "Nothing, Your Radiance," Velker confessed. "Our records show no evidence of such a coalition within known space." "Impossible," the Emperor snapped. "The Empire's stellar cartography is complete to within 50,000 light-years in all directions. There is nowhere for 42 developed worlds to hide. Unless," AI Overseer Kale suggested, its holographic form shimmering thoughtfully, "they exist beyond our current scanning range, or possess technology capable of concealing their presence from Imperial sensors." Neither possibility was comforting. "And this Peace Blossom," the Emperor inquired, turning to the chief Imperial scientist. "Most unusual, Your Radiance," the scientist reported nervously. "It appears to be a bioengineered organism that emits specific neural frequencies. These frequencies induce temporary changes in brain chemistry, reducing aggressive impulses and enhancing empathic responses. Harmless in itself, but the technology required to create such an organism is far beyond our current capabilities. Could it be weaponized? The Emperor asked bluntly. The scientist hesitated. Theoretically, similar principles could be applied to create organisms with more dramatic effects on neural function. But the specimen itself appears designed specifically to be benign. A demonstration, then, the Emperor mused darkly. A hint at what they could do if they chose to be less peaceful, or simply a genuine gesture of goodwill, Velker suggested cautiously. The Emperor's gaze snapped to him. You find these humans convincing, high strategist. Velker chose his next words with extreme care, aware of the mind guards monitoring his thoughts. I find their technology impressive and their behavior puzzling, your radiance. They have made no hostile moves, yet they speak of our empire as if its continuation is optional. An intolerable presumption, the Emperor declared flatly. Overseer Kale, your recommendation? The AI's form pulsed with energy as it processed countless variables. The humans represent a potential existential threat to imperial stability, not through military means, but through ideological contamination. Their talk of ideas that spread suggests a deliberate attempt to undermine imperial thought control systems. Then the solution is clear, the Emperor decided. The human delegation will be held in isolation while we extract all useful technological information. Once that is complete, they will be subjected to complete neural reprogramming to ensure loyalty, then released as a gesture of imperial magnanimity. Velker felt a strange unease at this pronouncement, an emotion he couldn't immediately identify. Was it doubt? Such a thing should have been impossible for one with his level of neural conditioning. And if this coalition they claim to represent comes looking for them? Velker asked. Let them come, the Emperor replied, a cold smile playing across his lips. The Empire has crushed rebellions and invasions for 10 millennia. This will be no different. The meeting concluded with clear directives: maximum security for the human prisoners, accelerated analysis of their technology, and a galaxy-wide alert for any vessels matching the design of the vanished human ship. Yet as Velker returned to his assigned quarters in the Imperial Citadel, he couldn't shake the memory of Ambassador Nolan's calm certainty as she was led away. No fear, no resistance. As if everything was proceeding according to some plan he couldn't perceive. Out of pure curiosity, and perhaps something more, he found himself drawn to the secure communication terminal in his quarters. With his high-level clearance, he could access the surveillance feeds from the humans holding cells. They were being kept in separate high-security containment units, each designed to nullify any known technology and prevent any form of communication. Yet what struck Velker was their demeanor. All 4 humans appeared perfectly relaxed. Ambassador Nolan was actually sleeping peacefully, while Chief Scientist Becky appeared to be meditating. None of them exhibited the stress responses typical of imprisonment. None showed the fear, anger, or desperation common to captives. It was as if they knew something he didn't. As if this temporary setback meant nothing in some larger scheme. Velker found himself recalling fragments of their conversations. The casual certainty with which Kira had spoken of empires rising and falling. The strange gift that influenced emotions without technology. The vanishing ship. The 42 worlds that somehow remained hidden from the Empire's all-seeing eye. And then there was the subtle change he'd noticed in himself since their arrival. Small thoughts he would normally have suppressed instantly as disloyal now lingered in his mind. Questions about the Empire's methods. Doubts about its infallibility. Was this what Kira had meant about ideas that spread once understood? Before he could pursue this disturbing line of thought further, his terminal chimed with an incoming priority message. It was from the Imperial Biological Research Facility where the Peace Blossom was being studied. The message was brief and alarming. Specimen undergoing unexpected transformation. Request immediate security protocol review. Attached was a visual feed showing the blossom, now removed from its wooden box, and contained within a sterile force field. It was changing. The small, seed-like organism had begun to unfurl delicate, crystalline petals that emitted a stronger blue glow than before. More concerning, the scientists monitoring it appeared to be exhibiting unusual behavior, removing their protective gear, smiling at one another, engaging in earnest conversation. Velker immediately forwarded the feed to Imperial Security with highest priority designation, then hurried toward the research facility himself. Something was happening, something beyond the Empire's control, and he needed to see it firsthand. By the time he arrived, Imperial security forces had already established a quarantine perimeter around the laboratory. Scientists were being evacuated, scanned for neural anomalies, and isolated for observation. Report, Velker demanded of the security commander. Sir, the specimen began changing approximately 47 minutes ago, the commander explained tensely. It appears to be blooming. The emitted neural frequencies have increased in strength and complexity. Effects on personnel? Varied, sir. Those in closest proximity report enhanced emotional awareness, increased empathy, and, most concerning, a marked decrease in loyalty imperative response. In other words, the Empire's neural conditioning was being neutralized. Who authorized removal from the containment box? Velker asked sharply. That's just it, sir, the commander replied. No one did. The specimen appears to have dissolved the box from within. Velker's blood ran cold. A biological organism capable of adapting, growing, and apparently executing programmed behaviors entirely on its own. Show me, he ordered. Through the laboratory's observation window, Velker could see the fully bloomed peace blossom, though it barely resembled the simple seed-like object the humans had presented. It had transformed into a complex, crystalline structure, its petals arranged in mathematically perfect patterns, pulsing with that same gentle blue light. But most disturbing of all was what the light was doing. It appeared to be writing. Threads of luminescence stretched from the blossom to the laboratory walls, forming patterns that gradually resolved into Imperial standard script. Words. It was writing words. Truth is contagious. Freedom is the natural state. Control requires consent. Ideas outlive empires. Simple phrases, repeating and evolving across all surfaces. And as Velker watched, transfixed, he realized something else. He agreed with them. Not just intellectually, but with a bone-deep certainty that bypassed his imperial conditioning entirely. Sir, the commander prompted, concern evident in his voice. Your orders? Velker snapped back to the present moment with effort. Maximum containment. No one enters without direct imperial authorization. And get me a secure line to the Emperor immediately. As the commander hurried to comply, Velker found himself unable to look away from the glowing messages. They seemed to speak directly to doubts he'd never acknowledged, questions he'd never allowed himself to ask. What if the Empire's 10,000-year reign wasn't the pinnacle of civilization, but merely one chapter in a longer story? What if control wasn't the same as stability? What if freedom, true freedom of thought and action, wasn't chaos but the natural order that empires disrupted? These were dangerous thoughts, treasonous thoughts, yet they felt more authentic than any he'd had in decades of loyal service. The secure Imperial channel chimed, pulling him from his reverie. The Emperor's face appeared on the small view screen, his expression thunderous. Explain this breach, High Strategist, he demanded without preamble. The specimen appears to be executing a pre-programmed sequence. Your Radiance, Velker reported formally. It's demonstrating properties beyond our initial analysis. Destroy it, the Emperor ordered flatly. Immediately. With respect, Your Radiance, we should study its capabilities further before. That was not a suggestion, strategist. The Emperor cut him off coldly. The specimen is to be atomized. Now. Yes, Your Radiance, Velker acquiesced, bowing slightly to the screen. Though I should note that we don't yet know if destruction might trigger other pre-programmed responses. The Emperor's eyes narrowed at this hint of resistance. You question my directive, strategist Thane? No, Your Radiance. Velker replied automatically, merely providing complete tactical assessment. See that my orders are carried out, the Emperor said before terminating the connection. Velker turned to the security commander. Prepare the molecular dissolution chamber. But first, I want complete holographic recording of the specimen from all angles. For the Imperial Archives, he added when the commander looked uncertain. As preparations for the Blossom's destruction proceeded, Velker found himself drawn back to the observation window. The glowing messages continued to evolve, phrases shifting and changing in response to what? Could it actually be responding to thoughts or emotions in its vicinity? And if so, what else might it be capable of? The dissolution chamber was ready within minutes. A small, specialized room where matter could be reduced to its component atoms through controlled quantum disruption. The Blossom would be transported there via automated carriers, minimizing human exposure. Yet, just as the final preparations were complete, every communication device in the facility activated simultaneously. Screens, communication arrays, even personal terminals, all displaying the same message in elegant Imperial standard script. We come not as conquerors, but as catalysts. The seed has been planted. The idea is spreading. Truth, once glimpsed, cannot be unseen. And then, across all Imperial communication channels, the same message began appearing. Not just in the research facility, but across the Imperial Citadel, across Orion Prime, across all 17 sectors. Simultaneously, the Peace Blossom began to dissolve. Not from external force, but from within, breaking down into microscopic particles that glowed briefly before fading from visible detection. By the time the automated carriers entered the laboratory to transport it to the dissolution chamber, nothing remained but a faint blue residue that itself was rapidly disappearing. The Blossom was gone, but its message remained, spreading across every Imperial communication network. And if the reports flooding in from across the Empire were to be believed, it wasn't just the message spreading. People were changing. Imperial citizens with the highest loyalty ratings were asking questions, expressing doubts, sharing forbidden thoughts. The Emperor ordered immediate deployment of the mind guards to all major population centers. Mass neural recalibration was initiated. The human prisoners were placed in deep stasis to prevent any further influence. But it was already too late. 1 week after the humans' arrival, Velker stood before the viewport in his private quarters, watching as the earliest signs of civil unrest appeared in the capital city below. Small gatherings, quickly dispersed by Imperial forces, only to reform elsewhere. Messages of freedom and autonomy appeared on public surfaces, then were erased, then appeared again. Ideas, spreading like the microscopic particles of the dissolved Peace Blossom. His personal terminal chimed with an incoming transmission on a frequency he didn't recognize. Against all Imperial protocol, he accepted it. Ambassador Kira Nolan's face appeared on the screen, though she was clearly no longer in Imperial custody. "Hello, High Strategist," she greeted him calmly. "I thought you might appreciate an explanation." "Ow," he began, then stopped himself. The question of how she had escaped or how she was transmitting was less important than why. "What have you done to my empire?" Kira smiled slightly. "We've done nothing to your empire. We've merely reminded people of their natural state. Freedom of thought is not an external imposition. It's the removal of artificial constraints." "The Peace Blossom," Velker said, understanding dawning. "It was never just a symbolic gift. It was exactly what I said it was," Kira corrected him. "A biological construct that temporarily dampens aggressive impulses and enhances empathic responses. What happens after that is simply humanity reasserting itself." "You've engineered a rebellion," Velker accused, though without the anger he should have felt. "No," Kira replied gently. "We've engineered nothing. We've simply created the conditions under which truth can be recognized. What people do with that truth is entirely their choice." "The Emperor will never accept this," Velker warned her. "The Empire has crushed rebellions before. This is not a rebellion, Strategist Thane. It's an awakening, and it cannot be crushed because it resides not in actions but in awareness." Once people understand they have the right to think freely, that understanding cannot be unlearned. Velker was silent for a long moment. You planned this from the beginning. The ship, the gift, even your capture, it was all deliberate. Kira nodded. We've learned from history, our own and that of the 41 other worlds in our coalition. Empires don't fall to external force. They evolve or collapse from within when their foundations are questioned. We simply accelerated the questioning. And now, Velker asked, surprised by his own calm. Now you choose, Kira said simply. All of you, individually and collectively. The future belongs to those who embrace it willingly, not those who must be forced into it. The transmission ended, leaving Velker alone with thoughts that would have been treasonous just days ago, but now felt like the most natural things in the world. He turned back to the viewport, watching as the patterns of unrest grew more organized, more purposeful. Not violent rebellion, but something more profound, a collective awakening. His hand moved to a small compartment hidden in his quarters, retrieving a device he'd been given decades ago but had never activated. A personal neural stabilizer, supposedly the Emperor's gift to his most trusted strategist, allowing temporary relief from the constant neural monitoring all Imperial citizens endured. Velker had never used it, never even acknowledged its existence. To do so would have been to admit that even he sometimes needed freedom from Imperial oversight, a dangerous admission for one in his position. Now, without hesitation, he activated it. For the first time in 40 years of service, his thoughts were truly his own. And to his surprise, he smiled. Perhaps, he whispered to the empty room, it is time to stand on the side of the future. Outside, across the Empire, millions of others were making the same discovery. That truth, once glimpsed, could never be unseen. That freedom, once tasted, could never be forgotten. That ideas, unlike empires, could never truly die.